So there has been a lot of discussion about SOTO, Janthier Wilds, and even Guild Wars 3 on this channel over the last year or so, and while fun looking into the past at things that cannot be changed and looking into the distant future of things that may never be is likely not the most productive use of our time. So instead, I want to open up a dialogue with you fine people about where we think we are going in the near future. Share some of my thoughts, hopes, and expectations moving forward with this franchise. And I want to say that I got a lot of great feedback from you guys in the comments section regarding Guild Wars 3 discussion, and I personally read every single comment, and many of them were also viewed by larger creators of this space as well. So these videos are one of the ways that I get to share my thoughts, and you also get to share your thoughts and put them out into the community forum as well. So thank you for sharing on the last video, and I look forward to what you have to say in regards to these points as well. Getting to the point, the Janthier Wild season is nearly over, and what a ride it has been. We have a new fractal and a legendary backpack to look forward, and ideally an end of the Yapping Bears storyline and onto the next season full of new stuff. But what does that look like? I'll give you a few options on what I think Expansion 6 can hold, and with just a little over 6 months remaining before the release of this expansion, this will give me plenty of time to say I called it in the event I am correct. So let's go over some of what I think ArenaNet might be cooking. As far as the main expansion draw, the old school expansions had elite specializations. For these new expansions, we have been getting new weapons as the primary selling feature. And while these definitely scratched an itch for the community, I find it hard that it is going to be enough alone to really get the community engaged for a third mini X pack in a row. The spear is a fairly solid weapon for every class on at least one build, and the weapon master definitely shook up the meta quite a bit with Secrets of the Obscure. However, I believe that the weapon gimmick has ran its course, and there's almost no remaining design space to have meaningful weapon additions without overriding the available options that already exist. By that I mean, if a Guardian gets a rifle as a power ranged weapon, for instance, it is competing with a longbow. If it is a Condi ranged weapon, then it's competing with pistols. Many of these classes have a fairly well-rounded kit these days, especially when considering Weapon Master from SOTO. So with the spear, it just often replaces a weapon anyway, and you see this with Hammer on Soul Beast, Greatsword on Power Virtuoso, and so on. They are essentially already cannibalizing purpose to fit in these new weapons. For that reason, I feel that a new weapon is likely going to be off the table, or if they do get added, they will be fairly hard to make special. And I know this video isn't off to a good start in terms of optimism, but let's look at some alternatives that can be added using similar development resources and budget, and some of the potential drawbacks that it might have. The first option I will call the Utility Master. Giving the core classes new utility skills and unlocking the utility skills from the elite specializations would have a similar effect to Weapon Master training, and frankly, it would bring many subpar classes into the competitive space. Imagine you have a Quickness Catalyst with Tempest Shouts available to it, Untamed with Stance skills from Soul Beast available to it, Will Benders with Mantras, and so on. I think the only class with the short end of the stick would really be the Revenant, since their legends are usually tied to their elite spec pretty heavily, though imagine being a Heal Herald and being able to run the blue side of the Alliance stance as a legend. That would be pretty fun. I also believe that the addition of new utilities would help fill gaps in underperforming builds. So if you tally up everything across a class, add some new utilities to fill in these gaps that aren't filled by unlocking the ones from the other specializations utilities, you can really homogenize the classes, which I think has been ArenaNet's goal over the last few years. This would also open up new levels of buildcraft, which is a huge part of the game in the World vs. World and PvP scene. Another alternative is an elite specialization. And before I get into what I am suggesting here, let me talk about what elite specializations actually are. Elite specializations in the traditional traditional sense have been a trait line, a new weapon type, and new utilities. So for the last 2 expansions, we've been given 1/3 of a total elite specialization, and arguably the easiest part of it to balance. The Utility Master's suggestion that we just went over is following the same 1/3 philosophy. Both of these options are relatively easy to balance, and the main concern would be keeping weapons or utilities in line with the other options, while not detonating that option for the spec that it was intended to be used on. We kind of saw this with Axe Mirage nerfs of yesteryear, where they just nerfed it so hard that it just sucks as a whole and it isn't used by anything. Anyway, what I am referring to when I say elite specialization for the purpose of this discussion is the final 1/3 piece, meaning the trait line. I think the addition of a trait line could really solve significant problems with some classes. The first class that really comes to mind for me is the warrior and the idea of a heal warrior. The only 2 options for heal warrior are berserker with quickness and alacrity for bladesworn, which both of them are useful in their own right, but not as a healer, and instead are good as boon DPS classes. In the event we got a new warrior specialization in terms of a trait line, we could use it to provide quickness or alacrity, maybe with some buffs to the banners or buffs to shouts, and you could really dream up a legitimate Paragon-esque heal build for the warrior that actually no bullshit works and is competitive with the other heal specs. I think a few other classes would benefit from trait lines like this as well, and even bringing some classes down a line by moving some functionality and utility around. So you would essentially have a new elite specialization trait line, but you would remove certain traits in underused trait lines and basically homogenize them into this new 3rd trait line that has a specific purpose. Some of these classes do kind of lack purpose. The fact that the Ranger has a Condi DPS build for all 3 of its existing elite specializations muddies the water a bit, and getting those traits out of those lines and dumping them on a new Condi specialization line is something that would be very interesting if it means reworking those lines with new options, more focused on their intended purpose. It would be hard to decide if they would include new utilities with this trait line, since oftentimes they interact with the trait line. They are dependent on skill type. You see this on Thief a lot, you see this on Warrior a lot for skill resets and cooldowns and stuff like that. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to do it without adding new utilities. But I think either unlocking utility skills, adding new utility skills, or adding a new elite spec trait line would be good. Hell, even adding a core trait line would work as well, but I feel those would be significantly harder to balance. So I don't see that happening. Moving on to some other features that would be nice to have in Expansion 6. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. I fully and 100% believe that Expansion 6 will feature the Roller Beetle as its primary selling feature. As far as mounts, we got the Warclaw and Skyscale, and ripping the Roller Beetle out of Season 4 and repackaging it for Expansion 6 would be an easy dub, especially if there were Roller Beetle races on the new maps. That would be fairly easy to repurpose because they already exist everywhere else, so it should be easy for the devs to do. In terms of story, I think ArenaNet did a poor job on both Janthir Wilds and on Secrets of the Obscure in their forms of storytelling. The scope of Soto was way too big, which they acknowledged, and they scaled it too far back in the opposite direction for Janthir Wilds. And to be completely honest, I really don't even know what's going on with Janthir Wilds because I'm just so bored. So in terms of story, what I feel would be best is to go with something like what was joked about during the Deroyer and Gang's April Fool's expansion trailer, where the devs say, you know what, we're giving you one new map and tier 5 fractals with 15 new fractals and 5 of them being challenge modes. Well, what does this do? It allows them to actually have freedom within the stories that they are trying to. Whether you are a fractal enjoyer or not, the stories that are told in fractals are very cool. Siren's Landing, really cool. Deepstone is a cool little story. The Chaos, Nightmare, and Shattered Observatory story chain following arc is one of the best stories the game has portrayed. And I feel that ArenaNet has absolutely shined during their small scale stories. Wing 1 through Wing 3 tells an amazing story about the White Mantle trying to revive Lazarus. Wing 4 is a standalone story that put a pin in the Saul D'Alessio story from Guild Wars 1, and this one got kind of retcon with the whole Cryptus thing, and I think that was horrible, and I refuse to believe that the Deimos Cryptus thing is real for the story. It's just way better if you just ignore that they tried to do that. We can fight about it in the comments if you want, but I'm not happy that they did that and they tried to make that canon. Moving on, Wing 5 is a story about Doom and Desmina, which is absolutely incredible. Wing 6 and 7 is a story about the Jin beef, told through a somewhat whimsical way that is really entertaining and fun. And Wing 8, I'm not even gonna lie, the only thing I know about Wing 8 is people drown themselves in like a piss pond or something for a DPS boost. That's the only thing I know about it. But even moving into the open world, the Cleansing Ore storyline with Treeherne and a lot of the side stories in End of Dragons and in Path of Fire are all incredibly done. And it's a shame that you can get a 10 to 15 minute story out that is well voiced, well acted, and most importantly coherent, but your larger year-long story is drawn out, half devved, half voiced, and most importantly is boring. Stick with what you're good at. The Fractal idea would give the devs an easy excuse to reuse assets and to tell stories upon existing stories. How about we go visit Vlast in the Crystal Desert while he was out 1v1 in Kralkatorrik and give him more than 2 minutes of screen time? How about we go visit the Hall of Chains right before Desmina was stripped from her body and turned into the Soulless Horror? How about we explore some of the external threats that the Wizards were fighting while we were saving Tyria by ourselves? The thing is that the concept of fractals and possibilities are endless, and not every single one needs to be a banger. If you drop 15 fractals and 10 of them are okay, 2 of them are annoying garbage, and 3 of them are top tier, people will be happy. Additionally, it would incentivize more people to partake in one of the most fun and repeatable contents in the game. I'm just putting this out there, but you should also revert the Mystic Coin change for fractals. I know at least one person who works at ArenaNet will see this video, so please just change it back. Back on topic, Expansion 6 has a lot of things that it could be, and despite my criticism of Soto, Janthier Wilds, Battle Pass Gaming, and so on, I want to see good content. I want to see the game succeed. I want to see the studio succeed. And I'm hoping that we can all get hype in the next 4 or 5 months once we start getting some information about what ArenaNet has in store for Guild Wars 2. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot my most important prediction. This will be the last Guild Wars 2 expansion. Expansion 7 will not exist. This is something I've also said before, and I'm saying it again. We can argue about it in the comments if you don't believe me, but I'm thinking Guild Wars 3 is going to come out before Expansion 7. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. A big thanks to all of my subscribers and a special thanks to all of my members who support the channel. If you want to become a member, hit the join button below. And I'm curious to read what your thoughts are in the comments. This is my primary way to interact with the Guild Wars 2 community as a whole. So if you agree or disagree or have some ideas on what you would like to see, I would love to hear it. Thanks again, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.